say we have a new soul.
The tzaddik, yeah. Well,
in one of the lessons you mentioned that new souls can be created.
no, nothing is created.
Do you need this?
So far I'm good. I think
Okay.
I'm 100%. So we'll see how far we get. Okay. New souls are not created. Nothing new was created. Okay. But there are new souls. We're in a place where, in a reservoir of souls, we'll call it, and they come down at certain appointed times when they get,
Yeah, right. I know, I recall all that, but I thought in one lesson we talked about that tzaddiks, one of the levels, can create new souls. Maybe I just recall it different.
Yes, you're right. When they are having, their connections in the lower Garden of Eden, they do make these souls.
The new souls.
Yeah, but they're like really external aspects of a soul. I guess you could say in a certain way those are kind of new.
But you're saying they are part of this original.
But you understand, they only are a certain level. These are the nefesh of the geyer. These are the nefesh of the convert. So they don't have like the full spectrum of all of the elements. They're only like a little garment aspect. They need more. How do they get more? When a soul goes and infuses in them and then goes into the world. So then you could say, just like one candle will light another candle, right? So therefore that one candle lights another candle. It doesn't diminish the original candle, and the second candle is a candle. So yeah, I guess you could call that a kind of a new soul in a certain way. In a certain aspect it is, because they created it in the Garden of Eden. But in a certain aspect it's not, because it didn't get its completion until it was infused with something that was already there, another higher soul. It was just a coat hanging out in the cosmic coat room, okay, in the lower Garden of Eden. But what you're saying is it's a good question. It's really an interesting thought to think about it, because,
Well,
are they new? How new are they, and what are they? So I'm just giving you a construct. I don't know for sure, okay?
Well, we attended a lecture by a different rabbi who who had a different opinion. So this is where this is coming from.
Oh, I'm in trouble now.
No, you're not.
Rabbi, you're way off. That's what you just got to say.
The passage from a different angle.
Not my place to say, but so we discuss it with the person who knows it.
Okay, I just wanted to show you there's 3 verses in Parshas B'Shelach. I just want to show him something
What was
quickly
your
before we
question,
start.
so we can all learn?
He wants to know about the 72 name of God, or the 72 bleeds into
Is that
216 letters.
Is that the chart that they do?
Yes, but those charts come from 3 verses in the Torah.
Yes.
You know which those verses are?
I have them here.
Vayisav Yavo Vayet.
Okay.
The Vayisav Yavo Vayet is in Parshas B'Shelach. Okay? And here it is. Okay? Vayisa Malach Elokim Ha'olech Lifnechem Machane Yisrael. Vayisa, right?
Is this the chart?
Yavo Vayet. Yes, that's it. There you go.
Yeah.
So here, these 3 verses have 72 letters in them exactly. But the thing is, what you have to do is they weave, according to the Zohar, we weave the first letter of the first verse with the first letter of the second verse and the first letter of the third verse. And there you have a name.
So how do they come
The first
up
name.
with
Then you have
the
this.
meanings? How do they
And then
come
you
up
take the
with-
second letter, weave it with the second letter.
And the second letter. Yeah.
But actually, it really doesn't work like that, because really it goes like forwards and then backwards and then forwards. Okay, it's a little complicated. It's a
But
whole
how do
nother
they
lesson.
get that understanding.
I don't. You have to.
It's a weave. It's a double. It's a weave, and a weave. Okay, but you got to know how to do the weave.
Yeah, how do they learn that?
Mount Moshe from Sinai. That's
So
the
it's
only
all
way.
part of the transmission.
There's nobody just said, well, let's try this. No one did that.
Yeah.
It was like Moshe goes, this is the 72 name of God. This is what I use to do this. This is what I use to do this. And this is what I use it for this and this and this. Don't say it. You got to think it. He gave all the rundown about how to handle this. And we are not on the level to handle this at this time.
Moses said that and killed the Egyptian, right?
But they said with a 42-letter name, a 3-letter name, it's an argument that goes in many different
I'll
directions.
get it back for you. Relax. He's not gonna steal it.
He's going to go get a photocopy because he's got connections here.
Give it back to him. He's nervous.
It's based upon the writing that's on the back here. This was given to me by Rabbi Yitzhak Goldstein.
Yeah, except for the idea where here is the descriptions. Yeah, we need to find the source of the descriptions of what they describe each one. I hold it's unfounded. They don't have a source for it unless maybe your guy at Har Zion who wrote your that siddur, maybe he's got sources for it. Otherwise, no sources.
For the 72 name of God.
No, that is the 72 name of God. But the thing is, it writes underneath it, oh, this is for this, and this is for healing, and this is for riches, and this is for this. And you don't know. How do they know that?
Yeah.
How do they know that? It's not in any Zohar. It's not in any Arizal.
What is-
I've got a source where you can find them, but it doesn't go according
What
to
verse?
that.
B'shalach what?
Parshas B'Shelach 19, Yud Dalid 14:19, 14:20. No, 14:19. Sorry, 14:19, 20, and 21. Okay, let's go on. Are we ready to start, Hevre? This is all we got. That's good. Okay. Shh, this is great because it's the men's only club. And I feel real free now. I am unleashed.
Where are the women?
Shh. There's no women, so I'm sure they're listening in from a distance. They always get me after the class. They go, "What do you mean by that, Rabbi? What do you mean?" Okay. What do you mean by that, Rabbi? Okay. So
Several people I saw on Monday were sorry you didn't have the class last Sunday.
I know
It's all right.
Harvey was the one who says, it's Mother's Day.
Oh, Harvey, don't talk so much.
What about your mothers?
I don't have one, I'm sorry.
Well, somebody does.
Yeah?
I
Well, they
guess.
don't have...
And Father's
So
Day.
my line
don't
was,
have to
go
come.
find a mother and take her to brunch.
Yeah, so
Go
you told
find
me.
a mother. Okay?
And then comes Father's Day.
Well, we should celebrate here
Father's
on
Day, my
Day.
Father's Day is, here's the shovel, go dig. Dig what? I don't care. Just go dig. Just keep
We
yourself
should
busy.
celebrate on Father's Day.
Empty the
all
garage,
together.
do
Men
chores. I get you a honey-do list, That's my Father's Day. Okay, anyways, let's go back. Okay, are we ready to start? We're going to be on page, we're in chapter 9. We're going to start on page 125. So we're here in Gates of Reincarnation, chapter 9, page 125, and we're talking about the Saba. Who is the Saba? My father-in-law wrote a whole translation and commentary on this one section in the Zohar called the Saba de Mishpatim, or he called it the old man in the sea. Why the old man in the sea? Because he talks about, sometimes he gets in too deep in a conversation where he's expounding and he's revealing certain secrets that he goes, oh man, I'm in too deep now, So this is the Saba who's, I believe his name is Rabbi Hamanuna Saba. What happens is when sometimes people who are worthy, only people who are worthy, and they're traveling on the road, he passed away, but he comes as an aberration. Do I say it right? A vision. He comes.
Apparition.
Apparition, not aborigines.
No, apparition.
Apparition. Thank you.
No, A-P-P, not A-B.
Okay, fine.
I have to spell
That too. So he comes as a vision, as a person, as a donkey driver. He comes in the appearance of a donkey driver.
That's a Mashiach?
No. He's a donkey driver. He schleps. He's a schlepper. He looks like a poor old schlepper. But he's full of unbelievable knowledge and wisdom. And he goes behind certain rabbis, only ones who are worthy. Okay?
Wonder why
And then he
said that to
pesters
you.
them with questions. And he gives them funny riddles. If you want to look at the bottom of 29, he's pestered Rabbi Yossi with these riddles while he was traveling with him. And Rabbi Yossi was just going like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to travel with this dude. Like, these are so nonsense. This guy's full of... And then later on, when he finally meets his buddy, and they're at the campfire, they call over the donkey driver, and then he puts on his tallis, and then he reveals secrets, and everybody's blown away. Okay? So... here was some of these. These are great riddles at the bottom here.
Oh, okay.
So he says, I was always pestered, right? Rabbi Chia, right? He says, throughout the journey I was troubled by an old man, a merchant, who was pestering me with questions all the way. Who is the snake that flies through the air? Who goes in separation? And between this and that, one ant finds rest between his teeth. He begins in unity and he ends in separation. Okay? Bizarre.
Very.
Just ultimate, you just know. Okay? What is that? Snake that flies through the air. The second one, and who is the eagle that flutters over a tree that doesn't exist? Whose children that were stolen are not from the creatures. They were created in a place that was not created. When they go up, they go down, and when they go down, they go up. 2 that are 1 and 1 that are 3. That was in the riddle number 2, right? And the third one was, what is your favorite color? Or what's the velocity of a laden swallow? Who is the beauty? Oh, the riddle number 3. Who is the beautiful girl who has no eyes, whose body is hidden and revealed? She goes out in the morning, she is covered during the day, and she is adorned in adornments that do not exist. Bizarre concepts. Obviously, these are really, really bizarre and really, really deep. And they have explanations for them, but we're not going to go into it. All I just want to show you is the Saba is full of stuff. Okay?
These all Zohar stuff?
Zohar. He's, Rabbi Hamanuna, only to those who are worthy. Okay? He would appear as a donkey driver. Nowadays, it would probably be a guy in a 18-wheeler. Okay?
You're not going to go over the answers to the riddles?
I cannot.
Oh my!
Oh.
You shouldn't read us riddles.
It's a whole nother limud, okay? We could cover it another time. I'm not going over this today. Okay? I'll tell you one thing. Who is the beautiful girl? I'll give you one clue. Who is the beautiful girl who has no eyes? That's a great one, actually. Really, it's the Jewish people when they say the Shema. Okay? And then the rest you can flush it out, whose body is revealed and concealed, okay? But basically it has to do with the Shekhinah, divine presence, the snake, the eagle, and the beautiful maiden, okay? In any case,
Here we are.
let's go back.
Again.
We're talking about, originally, let's backtrack. What we were talking about 2 weeks ago was that if a woman has a husband who dies, and then she remarries, so we say that the ruach, the spirit, there's an element of a reshima, of an impression that remains in the womb of the wife. Okay? There's an element of spirit there.
Right.
And when she marries the second husband, so then the two spirits fight. And it could be that the first one, her husband, the spirit, the smidge of spirit, dominates and actually drives out the second husband, and the second husband meets an early demise. And he dies. Yes, he physically dies. Yes, Anthony.
I've been having thoughts and questions. Is there like a...
Only just a couple of thoughts?
No, ever since
Just started?
the last one. Is there some kind of tikkun or something for like the residual effects of like past relations that women have? Because it's got to be jacking with their being or whatever. And yeah,
Good question. Let's read the text and then maybe we'll be able to answer. It's a good question.
because I've been.
I'm not going to
thinking
cut to
that
the
off
chase.
and on.
I think we should just look at it and see what happens.
Is there a
Okay.
specific instance where this has taken place in literature?
If you ever see in literature,
Yeah, where the wife demarried someone and their spirits fought. And
so we have a case instantly if you look in the Chumash.
like
You have
Tamar.
Aaron, Onan, who were the sons, who were the husbands of Tamar.
Yeah, but they spilled their seed. That was different.
Yeah, but see, the first husband, I don't think you're right. The second husband didn't even have relations with her.
Neither of them had religion.
Actually, it was, but it was called Shalo Kadarko.
Yeah, where he pulled
Shalo
out.
Kadarko, which means not the normal way. Okay? We won't discuss details. Okay?
Not the normal way. I'm afraid to ask
Why
you
can't we?
about it.
Because there are people in the internet who are going,
Isn't it called baggage?
and he calls himself a rabbi. Okay? So, okay.
We'll turn it
That's
off.
a whole different podcast. Okay? That's the podcast where I put on a mask and I make my voice weird.
You should turn it
Okay.
off and give us the answer.
Yeah. I turned that one off too. Okay. Let's just get. Did I answer your question?
No.
No.
What was your question?
Amir was an example of that.
I said let's look at the text and then we'll see. Keep your question. Your Anthony was your question.
Yeah.
Was your question?
My question was if there was a source of an example.
So, where any case where you see where there was a woman who had two husbands who passed away.
Both passed away?
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, 2 husbands who died.
Which sort? Which? Can you give an example?
You want an example in the Chumash? I don't know example in the Chumash.
Anywhere, Gomorrah, whatever.
I mean, there's many cases in the Gemara that's actually it's an argument. Do you wait for her to kill 3 husbands or 2 husbands?
Right, that's the black widow.
So Rabbi Yehuda holds is a chazaka by 2. So therefore, there's the status quo by 2. So after 2, we refrain from having her get married again because we see the situation here, and it bleeds into halacha. It actually has a ramification in halacha. Okay. In other words, marry at your own risk. Okay. If she's been through 2 husbands, marry at your own risk.
You know, they tell a story about that where the guy says your first wife died of mushroom poisoning and your second wife died of a skull fracture. How do you explain that? He says, very simple, she wouldn't eat the mushrooms.
Wow.
He's guilty.
Yeah, they won't buy a third one. Okay.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, so here we are in the Saba. I think we got as far as, I'm actually not,
This is where we stop.
I thought so. So let's start from this paragraph. If the spirit of the first husband is strong enough to conquer and push out the second spirit, and consequently the second husband dies as well, then it is not advisable for any third man to marry her. Not advisable. I don't think they're not gonna do it, especially if they write big checks to the synagogue. Okay? So it is likely that what has happened to the second husband will happen to the third as well. Okay? In other words, marry at your own risk. Therefore, tradition suggests that a man should not marry a woman who has had 2 husbands die on her. Because obviously, it seems like the spirit of the first husband is quite a fighter. Okay.
You're right, Black Widow.
Okay? However, but here's the reason. It's not in the mushrooms and it's not the skull fracture. Okay? So here's the Saba continues. This is the text. Okay? However, if the second spirit that has entered overpowers and conquers the first one, then the first spirit goes out from there and goes on its way. To where does it go, and what happens to it? So we're the normal scenario, a normal good scenario, that the woman remarries, and the second husband is alive. He lasted more than a year. We should have a party, right? Mazel tov. But where does the ruach, the spirit of the first husband, go to? So now the Saba is continuing. Campfire scene. He's got a talis on. These 2 rabbis are just jaws open because he's opening up this unbelievable discourse on the whole anatomy of a soul, right? The wisdom of a soul. So he always talks to himself. He addresses himself, and so he goes, "Oh, Saba, Saba," he says to himself, "what have you done? You thought you would say a few words and get out of this, but now you have entered a place that no one else has entered since the day that Doeg and Achitophel made those difficulties." They asked 400 questions concerning the tower floating in the air. But no one could answer them, any of them, until King Solomon came along and clarified each one exactly. Okay? We learned last week about the 400 questions of Doeg and Achitophel. Basically, it was a way to uproot David, his legitimacy for the kingship. Okay? He's an illegitimate progeny from the line of King David. He should not be king. You have to impeach and get someone else in there. Okay? So Saba, Saba, will you reveal this supernal secret that was hidden? What have you done? He's talking to himself. Saba, Saba, you should have watched yourself in the first place. But now, Saba, is not the time to hide out. Get your courage back. Where does the spirit that leaves her go? In other words, keep going. And then he starts to cry. He starts to cry throughout the entire discourse. And then he says, I'm trapped in the sea. The waves are crashing. How am I going to get out of this? A lot of times he'll go into this unbelievable drama with him, his expressing. Now, you have to understand, why is there all this drama? Because there's a fear to reveal certain things. Certain things should not be revealed. the other side, the external forces get hold of such information and they use it for negativity, for selfish purposes. A lot of times people are very much restricted from revealing secrets. You're just not allowed. And as a result, there have been several cases where sages will reveal, and all of a sudden, this bird comes, a crow, and the Arizal is with his whole heaven, and he says, he just told me that my son died. Right? Because I revealed to you this secret. I revealed to you this secret, he just told me that my son died. Okay? So they had such a situation like that. Okay? So, there's certain times where you're just not. It's just the world's not ready for it, and you're not supposed to reveal it. Okay? They took chances. The Arizal, the famous story of the Ari, was really amazing. His main student was Rav Chaim Vital. Rav Chaim Vital, he sucked up every single thing that his master would teach him. He had questions. He had deep questions. And he came to the Ari, he says, I have like these 5 real deep questions that I really, really need the answer for. I really want you to answer them. And the Ari says, if I answer them, then I die in 3 days. What do you want? Your choice. Go think about it and come back and tell me. And the guy says, I gotta have the answers. Then he told him the answers, and then he died in 3 days. Okay? Because it was time to go. What?
Did he have a chance to share them?
He did. He shared them. He told his sole student. He shared he gave him the answers.
Is it written where the
That I don't know. Okay?
Let's go back.
He began to cry. The spirit that goes out from her on its way wanders through the world, and it is not known. It goes to the grave of that man, the first husband, from whence it came. And from there it wanders about the world. This is bizarre here. You ready for some Twilight Zone? It appears to people in dreams who see in their dreams an image like that man. So if anybody sees like somebody who deceased in a dream, so where does that image come from? That part of the soul that was in the woman, okay, that got kicked out, and it wanders between the grave and the world. And it can appear in people in the dreams, and it would come in the image of that person who deceased. Okay?
Without them knowing them.
Well, they'll see him in a dream without them knowing him. Yeah. Yeah, maybe they don't know the guy from Adam. Right?
But what if this guy, first husband, marries somebody else? He's still alive in a new marriage. Where's his grave?
But the second husband is alive. The second husband is golfing every Sunday.
The first one may not die. May marry somebody else whose first husband left.
Wait a minute, sorry. You're talking about a divorce case.
The story is...
I'm not going for the divorce case. I'm going for the death, the widow case. Okay? We're sticking to the case here because you're right. It's an interesting idea, concept. What happens with the divorce? Does he still leave the impression of the soul within the first wife?
I thought the get was the severing.
If it's a get. So I guess you could say it's Jewish. It is a severing, so therefore it would be a total separation and removal.
It's interesting.
Good call. I think that's good. That makes sense.
The person that marries the other person, they get their soulmate no matter what. Because that soul, even if it may not be the right person, it becomes that soul, the other soul impregnates that soul, and it becomes their soulmate.
Which one? I'm lost. Number 1 or number 2?
So say someone marries their soulmate.
Yes.
And then someday they just not doing the right things. They get a divorce and they marry someone else, and that person has questions like, I don't know, that was my soulmate. This is like, I don't feel the same. But Hashem has mercy and puts the soulmate that's really supposed to be there into that person that they're with.
The second dude?
The second person.
That's a big
okay.
stretch.
Okay, it's a stretch, but did the guy die?
No.
So it's like an Ebor while he's alive.
Yeah, because Hashem, no matter what, you're going to get your soulmate. Whoever you marry, that's your soulmate.
It's true. But sometimes, no, there's soulmate number 1, soulmate Shani.
Like
Let's go on because it talks about it, okay? All right. So thus it wanders in the world and constantly visits that grave until the time when the soul spirits visit the graves of the bodies. What does it mean when the soul spirits, the soul, meaning the spirits, visit the graves of their bodies? So the second spirit, the soul spirit, is part of the soul of the person who has died. In this case, it's the first husband. In other words, the first husband died, and you'll say his main soul goes to its place. The only thing that we're talking about, what we're addressing, is that little impression soul, that little smidget that was left with the first wife. Okay?
But it's not there anymore.
Well, yeah, it's wandering, and it goes to the grave. And what are we talking about? So the time when the spirits of the soul visits the graves of their bodies, for example, on the day of the Yortzeit, the yearly anniversary on the day when the person died, it is known that on Yortzeits of people, that soul visits their own grave. They come from the Garden of Eden, and they come and they visit every Yortzeit in the year. Okay, it is customary that descendants and students visit the graves of the departed on the Yortzeit day to pray there, because it is a time when their prayers can receive assistance and power from the spirits of the departed ones. Okay, they get a little extra help. It's not that you pray to the person, you visit, you'll talk, you'll share, you'll pour out your guts, and that person goes up to heaven and prays on your behalf. Okay. Huge, actually, there's a Gemara in Brachos that speaks about it. Do the dead know what goes on among the living? It's inconclusive there. It did not conclude. What?
No, he said it was conclusive. He was talking about...
they knocked it off at the end. They thought Moses was the one who got to go tell Avram, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and it was really, maybe it was
there
just...
There was another one where he was sleeping at the graveyard.
No. They refuted it. They refuted it. You're right. But because they said, there's another way that this person could have found out.
It was about how he knew when to do
right, they went to plant wheat, when to plant, right? And
his wife got in a fight with the dead person's wife, and then the spirits wouldn't tell him.
Right, so they refuted that, they say, because it could be that someone recently died who went and told the dead person. In other words, the dead talk among themselves, but whether they know what's going on the living, it's not necessary. It's not proven. But the Zohar proves it. The Zohar says explicitly that if it wouldn't be for the dead praying for the living would not live out half a day.
Really?
Yeah. In other words, they do pray for the living. Okay?
Somebody must be praying for me.
Yes. Okay, so they do know what goes on among the living. But the custom is, of course, to go to the grave and spill out your guts, pray to God, and the dead person's soul who visits his grave on every Yortzeit hears it, and he goes up and also prays to God. Okay? Where am I?
We're in...
At such a propitious how do you say this? Propitious time, the spirit that was left with the woman by the first husband and has gone out from her to wander in the world meets the spirit of the soul of the first husband from whence it has come. In other words, here, little mini me joins with big me? What do you call it? Or whatever you call it, right? Me and mini me. So mini me finally hooks up with me. Okay? So the spirit joins with its main spirit, which clothes itself within it. The wandering spirit joins the main spirit of the soul that has come down to the grave. The former, the wandering spirit, becomes an exterior addendum to the latter until the soul returns to its place, which sounds like it's not a very long period of time. But anyways, there's a reconnection. When it, which is the main spirit, goes to its place, it divests itself of the wandering spirit, but there is a place for it among the palaces of paradise, or just outside of them. And there the spirit shelters, each one according to its ways. In other words, okay, it does become disconnected again, but it gets a little different status, okay? It's going to get to a place called out among the palaces of paradise, or just outside the palaces of paradise, some kind of cosmic realm where these spirits hang out. Yes?
I'm confused.
Is there some sort of a correlation between these wandering spirits and like the wandering Jew? Always going back to Sinai, and we always say, I saw you at Sinai. And
No.
like coming, trying to
No.
get back to Israel.
No, it's different. Wandering Jew is because you're a descendant of Cain. Cain has to wander. Yeah.
So there's two spirits.
There's a me, and then there's a mini-me.
And the mini-me is wandering?
The mini-me was the one that was in the womb of the woman and is wandering. And it'll go by the grave and wander, and it doesn't go up to any place.
Where's the other spirit?
So the main spirit is up. in the lower garden of
It's
Eden.
out. And then the mini spirit came from.
And then so every year, the main spirit that's in the Garden of Paradise comes down to its grave.
What is that in Kabbalah language?
It's called "Come Down to the Grave."
No, the nefesh is the mini-me, and then what would be the...
No, I'm not giving any. It doesn't give a name for min nefesh.
Okay,
You could say this is nefesh and this is nefesh.
okay.
This is nefesh A and this is sliver, Mr. Sliver. It's a sliver. It's a very small little sliver. Okay?
About the part that's still in the
So the
woman.
main part goes down.
It just
The ruach comes down into its grave, right? And then it meets up with mini-me. And mini-me just hugs and it gets attached. And it's part of it. It's an external part of it.
For a while.
What about the part
For a
that's-
while.
for a
And
while.
then it says, I gotta go. I gots to go. But
What about the part that's still in the woman?
that left. No. Don't forget. Let's get the scenario clear. The woman, her first husband dies.
Right,
She marries again.
right,
So now you have two, in the stomach of the woman is two
Two spirits.
spirits fighting.
right.
Number 2 dominates and kicks out number 1.
One's gone.
Number 1 is gone. That's the wandering spirit.
That's
Okay.
the mini boy.
It's the mini boy. He goes from the grave and he goes into your dreams, right?
Okay.
Right? And then he hooks up on the yard site with his main spirit.
Right.
I was looking all over for you, right?
Right.
I was looking for you too. So glad to see you. I gotta go. So it goes and don't leave me. I gotta go, man. So he leaves him, but he goes to it seems like a different place called the
Paradise.
Palaces of Paradise, or just outside of them. Okay, and it has shelter, some kind of shelter. When the spirits visit this world, when those that have died are needed among the living, then they ensconce within these spirits. So here's times another type of garment. It's an interesting kind of scenario. Okay. There are such a thing as spirits coming to visit the world to impart influence. Okay?
I believe that.
Ibur. Okay? We'll call it. When those spirits have died, are needed among the living, and I don't know exactly what the scenario is, okay? But for some reason, somebody who has died, and they're really needed among the living, maybe to influence, I'm thinking. So then they ensconce within these spirits. Okay, so it's another type of almost like the nefesh of the ger that we learned. It seems like it's a lower style of a nefesh of the ger. The nefesh of the ger, the coat was in the lower Garden of Eden. A spirit needs to borrow. It can't go into this world without a coat. It borrows the nefesh of the ger and comes down here. This is kind of different. A spirit needs to come because it's needed for some reason. It died, but it needs to come down and influence, get into a dream. It needs a smidget of something else to dress in, and it uses these. Okay, it uses these deceased slivers, mini-me's. Okay?
Will we be able to share a dream? I had a dream.
No, I'm not doing sharing dreams now. I cannot get it. Let's stick with the text, okay? After the class, save it for after, okay?
William Lindner Stir.
I don't know who that is.
Well, I mean, that was-
Because
Great poet, but watch out.
Not willing
Okay.
to listen.
Okay. 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 In other words, here we go. In other words, there are times of trouble when the living need the assistance of the spirits of the deceased. They need it. I don't know exactly what it is. In such times, the spirits of the deceased are able to communicate with the world of the living through the interface of these minor spirits that have been sheltering among the palaces of paradise or just outside them. In other words, they will come in a dream, but they don't look like the original dead guy. He looks like somebody else. Okay? Like Ed the biker. He looks like Ed the biker. But he really inside it's somebody who is a higher person, right? It's your dead relative, but he doesn't look like Rabbi Teicher. He looks like Ed the biker. Okay. Accordingly, it would seem that there is a happy ending to this story. The spirit drawn from the first husband that was left within the woman, which was banished as a consequence of her second marriage, and made to wander through the world, has become the interface enabling communication between the spirits of the souls with the world of the living. However, the Saba rejects this contention. Okay? Perhaps you will say that it has been an advantage to the spirit. And this woman has benefited everyone. It's not so. If she did not marry another one, and if the first spirit had not been pushed out from before the other, then it would have had a different advantage. And it would have had to wander in the world as it did. It would not have to wander in the world as it did, thank you. And it was not necessary for the living in this world. And it was not necessary for the living in this world that it should wander as it did here and there. Okay? I'm not sure what he's really saying here. If she did not marry another one, and if the first one had not been pushed out, it would.
He said then it'd be an entirely different scenario.
How can there be the first one if she didn't marry a second?
If she did not marry a second one, right? Then he would have been still in there, right?
And then he wouldn't have been wandering, and he wouldn't have made the connection. We wouldn't have the deceased helping the living.
Right, so it sounds like there wouldn't be a vehicle for the deceased to help the
To
living.
help the living.
It sounds like that. He's saying
there's
it would have
only
been,
one soul.
there would not have been a scenario if she didn't marry a second time.
Right. Period.
There would not have been a scenario
So
that the dead would be able to help the living.
We need more widows.
We need more husbands.
7 women for every man.
Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yossi challenged the Sabba's position on this issue with the following question. If that is the case, then the second union of this woman was not a good thing. But you said that the rule is that one man is pushed out by another man. Okay? The Saba himself taught us a rule that applies to these matters. One spirit is pushed out by another. Therefore, it is quite natural that the first spirit should be pushed out from before the second. It is not a calamity, and it should not be looked at in a negative way. Now, one of them will ask the Saba another stronger, more compelling question. And I say, maybe the second husband that married this woman is really her soulmate, because it could be. Many times it is. The second marriage is the real soulmate. The first one was bogus. Okay?
First one was practice.
First one was bogus. Okay?
Dress rehearsal.
Yeah. Well, they warn very, very emphatically. The sages never pray to marry a certain person. Okay? Because it could be she is not your zivug. And what would happen is, if a person would pray, I gotta marry that girl, I gotta marry her, right? What happens, and she's not your soulmate,
Get divorced.
then when it comes time for the real soulmate to come, and worse, when it comes time for the real soulmate to come and marry her, then the first husband has to check out, meaning he has to die. He gets killed, okay? In order to make room for the real soulmate to come in. Okay? You hear what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have more than one soulmate, right?
Potential. There's potential soulmates for each person. 10, let's say. Could be even more.
Right.
There could be potential. Everybody has many because it depends upon your spiritual level. A person low will attract a lower level soulmate. A person on a higher spiritual level will attract a higher level of soulmate. Okay? That's why God says it's hard. They say in the Talmud it is harder for God to pair off somebody than in the parting of the Red Sea. Now, wait a minute. That doesn't make any... What are you talking about? First of all, for God, nothing is hard. What are you talking about? So it is hard because you know why? Because man is always fluctuating in terms of his levels of his growth or descension. Okay? In other words, God, let's say he has 10 potentials. You have the highest and then you have the lowest. So man, he's like, if he's going like this, God's going like, I want to put you with somebody, but you just can't stand, you got to stand still for a minute. Okay? So that's why it's hard for God to pair off somebody as it is the parting of the Red Sea.
So like our forefathers, I know might be an exception, but like Yaakov married 4 people.
Okay.
So Rachel, Leah.
Okay, so his real zivug was Rachel. His real soulmate was Rachel.
Well, what about Leah and
Not his real soulmate. They didn't have to die. They don't have to die. No. First of all, it goes on the man. So, but the idea was that, right, each one has its independent story and who it was and what soul it came from. Okay, Bilhah, who was the concubine of Rachel, was, if you interchange your letters, right, she is Hevel, reincarnated into a woman.
Wow.
You didn't. Abel? Cain and Abel?
Oh, Abel.
Abel, Hevel. His Hebrew word was Hevel. Bilhah is the same letters.
Wow.
Okay?
Dun, dun, dun.
Is the woman aware of these souls?
I'm low on battery charge. I've got only 20% battery left. Okay.
Is the woman aware of the souls that are within her from the husband?
Gosh. You know something? Now that now that we have exposed this text, it could be that I'm going to get all kinds of emails and phone calls. Okay? Rabbi, I've got these voices in my head. Okay? That's when I go to Harvey. Okay.
The question
Okay.
is, where does Harvey go?
Okay.
Don't tell me.
He deals with
Don't
it.
tell me.
Okay, fine. Okay, where are we? Point to where we are left off.
Okay, so therefore
And I
Saba
may-
pushing
and I
out the
say-
first spirit was not only natural, it was just. The Saba answers right there.
Where is that?
It was also just the Saba answers.
Okay.
It is certainly that way. The first spirit that was in this woman is never pushed out unless the second is her soulmate. Big, huge quantifier here. In other words, number one only gets pushed out if number two is the proper soulmate.
Got
If
it.
number two is not the proper soulmate, right?
He stays.
Then number one is going to stay, and number two go bye-bye.
This is with death, right?
And in all the cases where the second is pushed out from before the first ones, it is the first ones that are the soulmates and not the others. That is why they cannot abide together, and the second spirit is pushed out from before the first one, because there can only be one. Consequently, it is said about the person who marries a widow that he doesn't know his soul. Okay?
He doesn't know what he's doing, right?
He doesn't know his soul. He doesn't know what he's doing, because the net is spread for no reason. He does not know if he is the soulmate or not. If she, right? He does not know if she is his soulmate. In other words, don't pray ever, I gotta marry that person. Because it could be it's not for you. You allow God's providence to take you to the right place. Okay? The Saba now introduces an entirely new possibility that coincides with his own preference in these matters. No one husband, no more. That's almost like no woman, no cry. Okay? One husband, no more. There is a widow who does not remarry, even if her soulmate comes along, but she does not want to remarry. God does not coerce her with force. He prepares another woman for the man, and he does not enter into harsh judgment with this one in this world, even if she never has any children, because a woman is not commanded to be fruitful and multiply. Okay? She does not have the mitzvah, the obligation. Men have this obligation. Soldier never leaves a good man behind. You got to leave someone behind in this world. Okay? If you don't, then it's not too good. It seems that the Saba does not favor complicating combinations in human relationships. He much prefers the simple formula of one woman with one husband. Thus, even if her first husband who has died is not her soulmate, and the second potential husband is her soulmate, the Saba nevertheless prefers that the woman refrain from marrying. Astounding. This is the Saba's preference, at least for the first 12 months after the death of the first husband. In other words, wait 12 months. Okay? This is the Saba's preference, even if good things will result from the second marriage, even if the woman has never had any children and she will have to live out the rest of her life without any family and without children. She is not obligated with the commandment to have children. God will arrange for her soulmate to have children through another woman, and all other benefits would have come out in a better way. Okay? It seems that this attitude is opposite of everything that we learn in the Torah. Consider, for example, the great efforts made by the rabbis to permit an aguna. Do we know what an aguna is? An abandoned wife to remarry. Classic case where the husbands, like most recent huge case where they had to deal with the Twin Towers, where they were Jewish husbands. They don't recover the bodies. There's no absolute proof that he's dead. How can the woman remarry? So they need big rabbis to do that, to say, okay, well, we will make an assumption that the husbands are deceased, and then she's allowed to remarry. Because what happens if they're not? What happens if she gets remarried, and then all of a sudden number one comes, I'm back, right? Right? Then she's she's been over Ashes. She's been living with a married woman, and the children are illegitimate children. They're mamzerim. Right?
What if your kids are mamzers?
What?
What happens if they're mamzers?
They don't enter into congregation of Israel. They cannot marry a Jew.
Oh wow. What if
Okay?
they convert?
Convert schmert.
No?
If they're Jew, they're mamzer. You are Jewish. It's just you're just a mamzer with no
No
root
privileges.
connection.
So-
Yeah, root without any
How can they
privileges.
How can they?
This is a separate issue. We don't talk about the halachas of mamzer right now. Okay, mamzer, a mamzer.
Yeah.
According to the Torah, any legitimately eligible woman is certainly allowed to remarry, because the rabbis would go to huge extents for these agunot. Okay, huge extents to allow them to remarry. Okay. They're even encouraged to do so. Start a life again. That includes divorcees and widows. In addition, unattached widows constitute a potentially serious social problem in more ways than one. Right? I'm thinking of if you have huge neighborhoods of just a lot of widows, it's just not good. Okay, because who knows what can happen. Okay. Nevertheless, the Saba seems to be of the opinion that the men, and the whole world would be better off if the widow never remarries. And this is his opinion. It's his opinion, at least for special cases or for special people, and certainly for the first 12 months after the death of the first husband. Okay, now we're going to get into explaining back to the tower floating in the air. Okay, Yibum. Okay, however, there is one major instance where the Saba will agree that a woman should remarry after the death of her first husband, and this even in the first 12 months. And yes, this is called Yibum, and the Torah's just about obligates it as well. It is the case of Yibum, which is called the Levirate marriage, where the first husband dies without leaving any progeny in this world. The brother of the deceased first husband, right, the woman's brother-in-law, is designated by the Torah to marry the widow. This is the act of Yibum, Levirate marriage, that will liberate the spirit that was left within her by the first intimate relationship with her first husband, and build living progeny in the name of the deceased. In other words, here's a direct, and we've spoken about this before, here's where you get a direct knowledge of who that progeny is, who that child that is born out of that Yibum is. It is the brother. Okay? He gets the status, halachic status of like a brother. Even though he's a child, he should be a nephew. No, he gets full brother status in the inheritance all across the board. Okay? He is that guy, and he's back. It's like almost as if the Men in Black, where the guy's head grows back or something like that. Here the guy just grows back. The brother's back. Different body, but it's me. Okay?
Do you name him the same?
That's a good question. I don't know.
You also mentioned the word inheritance too. So if the father, and you have sons, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying that the inheritance would go to that?
Yes,
child?
let's say if there's 3 brothers and one dies, normally the inheritance would be split 2 ways. But because now there's a Yibum, there's a Yibum, so he is equated with the brother, so now the inheritance is split 3 ways. He is the brother.
So he's not first, it's split.
No, it's split 3 ways. Whatever it is, it's split 3 ways. If it was, in other words, you get it?
No.
There were 3 brothers.
There's 3 brothers.
One
brother
dies. Now accordingly, if you look at it, externally, the inheritance is going to be split
50-50.
50-50.
Okay.
Now, he does
Now
Yibum,
where Yibum comes around.
right? He does Yibum, he marries the widow, and there you have a son. That son gets status of brother number 3 because he is brother number 3.
Doesn't the firstborn get like 50% and then the remaining brothers?
Okay, now let's assume it's not a firstborn case of a firstborn where they get double portion. Correct, but in a normal case scenario, yes, they get double portion. Okay.
Okay. Very good.
But I don't know if this guy's going to get the double portion, because if he was the Bachor that died, does he get double? I don't know. It's good questions, okay? Here we go, okay?
Now the foundations.
Now the foundations of the Davidic dynasty are the Yibum of Tamar and Yehuda,
There you go.
and the Yibum of Ruth and Boaz. There's two Yibum situations here, okay? Two levirate marriage, different time, different place.
That was a you.
Both these relationships were questionable and susceptible to the challenges of Doeg and Achitophel. They went into the records, they did the file, they investigated, and they checked it out, and they've got a 400-page file, on each Yibum to invalidate them. Okay, why? They are the tower floating in the air. Yehuda was not the brother-in-law of Tamar. He's the father-in-law of Tamar. That's not kosher.
And he was the third.
It's a mamash treif. It's a treif.
That was Tamar's fault, not his fault.
Yeah, but there was another brother there. His brother Shelah. Okay, Shelah was the Zika, the invisible bond was there between her and brother number 3. He didn't want to give it. There had to be a chalitza. They didn't do a chalitza, and here he is moving in with his little one-night stand, okay? He had no idea who it was, okay? Unbelievable. I'm just painting it how they would paint it. You understand? They're on CNN and they're going like, this was for sure no good. You understand? It's the father-in-law. It's totally against the law. What they did was they broke the law and they must be persecuted and David must be dethroned, okay? That was CNN for 2.5 years, okay? What?
Now we have Fox News. Go ahead.
What?
Make a good soap opera.
It is a soap opera, and the thing is, it's real. In any case, this is Doeg and Achitophel, the experts. You call them, they're genius experts, and they spin good. And they know how to spin, right? And they got everybody spinning, okay? So it's her father-in-law, Ruth. Let's get to the Ruth case. We got 400 pages on the Ruth file, okay? The Ruth dossier, okay? Ruth was a Moabite woman. Peh! Moabites. It's an explicit verse. Moabites are not allowed to enter into the congregation of Israel. Ruth was a Moabite woman, and her legitimate entry into the congregation was questionable, let alone that she could become the mother of the royal house. There's a gene. We also did a gene test on King David. We see gene as genes. There's the funny genes, okay? Furthermore, even her marriage to Machlon, the son of Elimelech, was legitimate, right? Even if her marriage to Machlon, the son of Elimelech, was legitimate, even if you say that, which it can't, I don't know how it can be. Boaz was not the brother-in-law. Not his brother, but his father's cousin. What kind of Yibum is that? This is a disqualified Yibum on 2 counts of disqualified Yibum, and King David is definitely disqualified the legitimacy for being the king. Okay? It's like, what a scandal that is. Okay? The spirit that was left within the woman of her first husband may well have been flopping around with Tamar and Ruth. And then let's get into this. The details, of course, because we have Ruth, right, and Tamar. And Ruth and Tamar have the dead husband's soul within them. Okay? The husbands. The souls of the first husbands. Machlon and
Tamar had 2.
Tamar had 2. Well, I don't know what happened with the other guy. Because the heir, I don't know what Onan did. We don't know what Onan did. Okay?
The first or second? Which one was Onan?
It's kind of interesting because even if there was a ruach in there in the first place, because if we can talk man talk here, okay? I can say it in Hebrew, but of course, and get away with it clean, but I'm not going to be able to do that. Okay. So, Er and Onan. Er was dash mibifnim v'zorea b'bechutz. Which does that mean? That he penetrated, but then when it came time for the seed to come out, he withdrew, so that she wouldn't get pregnant because he would lose her beauty.
Huh?
He would lose.
He pulled out.
He would lose her
Where
beauty.
did you read that?
Oh, where did I read it?
That's known to the Gemara.
In the Talmud.
Talmud said it.
Yeah.
And then Er did not want to impregnate her. He didn't want the brother to come back. I hated that guy. I want him back, and he's going to be my son. I'm going to have to take care of him. No, I don't want that brother's line to continue. So he basically had in the shalokadarko, we call it shalokadarko. He had relations not the normal way. In other words, there's other orifices in the
I thought
body.
he did the same thing.
No.
No?
Are
No.
you talking about Onan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So in other words, if there was no seed, is there that element of the soul in the stomach? You understand? If there was no actual release in the womb of the seed, was there that element of soul in the stomachs of those? Now, Ruth, for sure there was, because she was married to Machlon. Okay?
When you say stomach, you mean uterus. Is that
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
just-
I'm trying to be
just
clean
qualifying.
language here. Okay?
Uterus is not a dirty word. I'm just qualifying.
The doctor's
Okay, fine.
in the house.
Thank you.
Okay.
The doctor's in the house.
I can go on. Okay, let's go on. The spirit that was left within the woman by her first husband may well have been flopping around within Tamar and Ruth. Okay, according to here, it says that they were. Okay, Tamar had the spirit that was left, right, by the first husband. We'll talk about the first husband and Ruth. But did these unorthodox types of Yibum free those spirits and build them up? Okay, don't forget. The spirits are wandering. They're connected to the stomach of the woman, right? And they're not totally free unless a real yibum has been done. Then you have considered to be rectifying or fixing those specific souls. But since it wasn't the right person marrying these two people, was that a correct soul correction for those two spirits to come back? Okay? Could these relationships build the foundations of the genealogy of the kings of Israel and Messiah? Around these issues, Doeg and Achitophel asked 400 confounding questions, such as what happens to the spirits of the first husband. So they spun intricate circles, a lot of stuff of what happens to the spirit of the first husband that is left in the stomach of the first wife. Okay? These are the 400 questions, okay? Doeg and Achitophel on the tower floating in the air. So the discussion of the points touched upon here goes on and on in the
Imitable.
say it again.
Inimitable.
Inimitable way of the Zohar and the Saba. Obviously, the Saba was quite reluctant to reveal these things. For us, it is not so much of a problem, since we do not understand too much of the Zohar anyway. But the Holy Zohar, the Holy Ari comes and tells us that he too will be revealing one of the 400 questions. Okay? So chapter 9. So here now, that was all just an introduction to chapter 9.
Great.
Now chapter 9, I'm just going to do this just to the end of the page, and then we start with only men must reincarnate, and we're going to talk about do women reincarnate next week's class. But first, let's just finish here. Like the Saba, chapter 9 is one of the 400 questions that Doeg and Achitophel asked concerning the tower floating in the air. Now we have an idea of what the tower floating in the air is. It's the question concerning the Yibam, or what happens to the spirit of the husband in the stomach of the first wife. Okay? Like the Saba, the subject of chapter 9 will be Gilui Arayot, illicit sexual relationships, how they affect Gilgulim, and how the sparks that fell into the klipot because of the sin are ultimately redeemed. Okay? Gilui Arayot, which means illicit sexual relationships, including bestiality, homosexuality, adultery, and 24 prohibited incestuous relationships. The penalty for Gilui Arayot is excision. That means spiritual cutting off, and sometimes the death penalty as well. There are additional prohibited sexual relationships that are not included in the category of Gilui Arayot, such as when a Cohen priest marries a divorcee, that's a no-no, or a man has an affair with a single woman, also a no-no. Now in chapter 9, the subject will be the consequences on Gilgulim from the sin of homosexuality, which is also known as the tower floating in the air. Okay, and here's the place we'll stop. Next week, section 2, only men must reincarnate, because Gilgulim really only applied to men and not to women. Astounding stuff that we're going to uncover. Cross-gender of souls and reincarnations. It's as if he was like thinking he was in this generation.
That's right.
Right?
Well, they know
Bizarre.
They know everything.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So in this week's Parsha more, right?
Right.
So